What are some of the biggest sacrifices you think you've had to make moving to Canada?
Family, you leave family. I miss my family. So by the time I was leaving Nigeria, I was a comms advisor with an NGO friend. But sometimes I'm like, if I had stayed in Nigeria, immigrants are doing really, really well in Canada because the truth is the system works. But you, like you said, you have to come with a plan. You have to be focused.
So, UK or Canada?
Oh dear Lord.
On this channel, I create these conversations and these videos to inspire you, to encourage you, and to also give you the support you need to navigate this new journey of starting a new life in a new country. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to help the channel to grow. One important thing, if you're arriving in Edmonton, Alberta, I've got good news for you. If you need to find a home, an apartment for your family, for yourself, before you arrive in Canada, reach out to me. We have a full settlement service. You can find the link to the booking on the screen or in the pinned comments or in the description. I look forward to serving you and supporting you. So let's get right into the conversation. With Biba.
Yes.
She's a communications advisor and she moved to Canada 6 years ago to share her experience as first a newcomer and now a Canadian, right? Yes. You know, for a lot of people, they move to one country, right? And then settle, build their lives there. Mm-hmm. But you moved from UK to Nigeria and then to Canada. It takes a different kind of mindset to do that. So what is that thing that makes you continuously courageous and curious?
I said courageous. Growing up in Nigeria, I moved to the UK when I was about 18, 19. It was time for university.
Okay.
So it just happened. And then I was there for about 10 years. I know how the UK is. I tell everybody, don't go to the UK. You know how the UK is. It's after 10 years, you still don't get your PR. It's like you're just, renewing your work permit and stuff like that. So after 10 years, I was like, let me go back to Nigeria. I have a home there, thank God. And so when I went back to Nigeria, that's when, maybe it was fate, that's when I met my husband.
Okay.
And then we got married, and then this whole Canada stuff, that's when the whole Canada stuff
came up.
And we're like, okay, let's give it a try. So I won't necessarily say it's courageous. I think it's just different points in my life that has been the the trajectories that happened. Someone was asking me a question a while ago that, do you see yourself leaving Canada to... I said, I never say never.
That you moved to the UK when you were 18. So yes. I know a lot of people say it was for education, but were you looking for something in particular? At that age, did you understand what moving meant? Or you just knew, okay, I've been sent there to go to school, or there was something more you wanted?
At that age, it was just education.
Okay.
Your parents are paying for everything. It was, I thank God that we were privileged to be able to afford, fees in the UK. So obviously you grab that opportunity and you run with it. And then the UK is a bit close to Nigeria. So I think every Nigerian has family in the UK. So it's like, go somewhere that is close, 5-6 hours, go somewhere there's family. So the plan was to go there and obviously school. So 4 years undergrad. And then the way it was back then, after that, you get, I think, a 2 or 3 years postgraduate work permit. You try and get a job, and it's like everybody back home is hopeful as well, because you're also growing. You're now in your 20s, so responsibilities start coming. They stop sending you money, so you also start hustling, and it's like life starts happening.
Yeah.
So after the 2 or 3 years postgraduate work permit, I was fortunate to do my master's. I think I worked for another year or 2, but then again, like the UK, the permanency just never came in because of what I studied. Just never came. And so, yeah. And because I remember when I was going back to Nigeria, a lot of people were like, what is wrong with you? Just stay. But for me, I didn't want to stay past my time. And then maybe I didn't know there were other avenues. But everybody that we came with together, like friends, we came in when we were 18, 19. After a while, I had to leave because there wasn't that permanent
direct path.
Yes.
Moving back to Nigeria, right? So there was no direct path. That was clear. So for you, returning home seemed like the right option for
Yep.
you at that time. Was it different for you? I mean, because you had lived most of your adult years in the UK. How was it like integrating back into Nigeria? Did you ever at a point regret moving back? Was it easy integrating?
It was not easy integrating, I can tell you that. Because even though I would come home for holidays, like Christmas holiday, you come home, somebody's wedding, you come back, but you're only there for 2 or 3 weeks. Even though I lived in Nigeria as a child, this one now as an adult, where you're the one paying the bills and you're now seeing what your parents used to complain. Yes. It was as if it was a culture shock. I was like, what is going on? I remember when I met my husband was like, you're not in Nigeria. Because I used to complain about customer service. I'm like, but baby, this can be done better. This can be done. And he'll just be looking at me and say, okay.
Oh, you won't?
Yeah. He's like, you're not Nigerian. My sister tells me that you're not Nigerian. Or something happens is like, I remember the first year we got married, the power went out, which is, a constant in Nigeria. But then the transformer blew. So I knew that for 1, 2, 3 weeks, it won't be light. And I started crying. And my husband was like, but this is...
It's normal. It's not normal for me.
So there was that culture shock. Maybe some regrets, but I wasn't going to stay past my visa time. That was something I don't have the heart to do that. There's something I just could not do. People do it, which is okay, but I just thought to myself, thank God I have a home. My mom is there, my grandparents are there, my aunt is there. Thank God I have somewhere to go. It's better I come back and I'm legal in my country than be illegal somewhere else.
So would you say that it's those things that made you uncomfortable or difficult for you to integrate back? Were they also part of the factors that fueled the Canada journey?
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, after a while, I had accepted that this was the norm. That this is our life now. This is Nigeria. However, I remember when I gave birth to my child, when we had our daughter, some things changed in you. People say some things. For me, some things changed. There was a sense of, I have to protect this individual. I have to protect this person. And I would never forget this incident. Really, after we gave birth to her, this was the first child, I've never done this before. Then we had to do immunization. And the hospital where we had it was a small private hospital in Abuja. I said, you have to go to the general hospital to go and get. So I was like, okay. She was about a week old. And we got to the general hospital. There was a long line. We were there for over 5 hours. And I remember women were waiting there with their babies. And somebody came and started sweeping. And the north, Abuja, is really dusty. And I remember I was covering, children, they were coughing. And I thought, no, now I've seen this. The life can be better. This is not it. This is not it. And another time my daughter got ill, the kind of treatment that happened. I remember that time in the hospital. She was about 6 months now. And the way she was being treated, I burst out crying. And I told my husband, I said, this cannot go on.
You can't do this.
And I sound like what Nigerians would call an ajebota. But
what does that mean?
It means, like you're maybe spoiled or something like that.
Okay.
But I think because I had seen that it can be done differently, I said, no, please. Please.
That's like, I can relate. I think I recently saw a video of somebody comparing, he's Nigerian, so he was comparing life in Nigeria versus Canada. I mean, he didn't shade Nigeria, but he highlighted the positive things why he would want to stay here. And I know system is perfect, but unfortunately for me, like you said, you have seen it done better somewhere else, right? And so even though in Canada it might not be heaven or perfect, you'd prefer life here because, like you said, you have kids and you're thinking about the future. You're thinking about their healthcare, the quality of life. So that really becomes a determining factor for where you want to live if you are presented with options.
Yes. Right. And honestly, let me just say this to buttress this point, so it's not taken out of context. Don't get me wrong. There are people living large in Nigeria, right? So we were a young couple, we're just starting life. So there were some things we could afford, some things we could not afford. And for me, being middle class, I just thought there must be something better. There must be. It wasn't like as if we knew somebody that knew somebody, like a governor or something. No, it was just us and God. So you know how it is back home. So it was one of those. It was one of the reasons.
Yeah. So who started the journey? I know, like, with all these emotions, you were nursing the idea of moving out, but who, sets that thing going? Like your husband or you? Let's move to Canada. And how was the whole process like?
When we first got married, I think my husband brought it up, and I was like, no. I said, I've lived abroad, and the thing about abroad is if you do not have a good job, because I was in the UK, and I remember after my master's, if you're looking for a good job, because that's what will probably have gotten you the work permit, the organization would have filed for you. So I saw a lot of people in the UK, they finished their masters, and that good job did not come. So they were working in the supermarket or something, and I just thought to myself, this is not for
Not the
me.
life you want.
No, this is not it. Our parents have spent so much money. Back then, pound to naira was about 300 naira to £1. So you just imagine something. My parents didn't do all of this. And so maybe being scarred from the UK, I saw, remember when I was doing my master's in Aberdeen, the class I was in, corporate communications, were about 30 students, a few Nigerians, few Indians, and Caucasians, and we had internships.
Okay.
Aberdeen is an oil and gas. Majority of the Caucasians got in the school worked it out. They got internships in the oil and gas organizations.
Okay.
And then I remember me and some of my Nigerian friends, I got the school library, and then I was thinking,
which is not like really what you wanted.
It was okay, but I'm like, why couldn't I
get to that place?
To the oil and gas, it's just a 2-month internship, but why? So I thought to myself, maybe the West is really. Do you understand? So I didn't understand permanent residency, and I thought I'm not going somewhere to go and suffer and to be working in Costco or Walmart per hour. That's not it. So when he brought it up, I was like, no. Yes. So it just died a natural death. Then about a year after our daughter came, somebody, I think he also brought it up.
Okay.
And what my husband does is he'll come up with an idea, but he knows that I'm the person that runs with. So he'll just plant a seed to see.
Okay.
And once I just ran with it.
Okay.
In fact, he just sat back and watched me that's how I am.
So what was the difference between the second time and the first time?
Having a child.
Okay.
A lot of people say don't, but for me, I looked at this girl and I thought, no.
You need to give her something better.
Yes.
Yeah. How was the whole process like? Your application. I know you came around the COVID time, or was it before?
2019, just before
COVID. So how was your application process like? The emotions you went through. How long did it take?
It took us about a year.
Okay. I think everybody I've spoken to who came around that time, it took longer than most of those of us who are coming after COVID.
Really?
Yeah, mine took like 4 months.
I think everybody's application varies.
Yeah.
Everybody's application varies. So from when we started the process, ours was a bit long because I took the IELTS 3 times.
Okay.
Canada is no respecter of persons. In fact, when I started doing research about the language exam, I was like, I schooled in the UK now. What is it? I'll just show them my, and it's like, no, you have to write it.
Okay, so even if you schooled in the UK, you still need to
you have
write.
to. You have to do your worst. You have to write. It doesn't care. Even if it's... you can be coming from the Queen's Palace for all they care. You have to write it. So I remember... And I don't like exams. So I remember my husband and I started studying. And I think because of the excitement... So I think I gave myself like 4 weeks.
Okay.
And I took the exam. And when I came back from the exam hall, I knew I didn't do well.
Why is that?
The listening I tuned off. Like, my mind wandered off. So by the time
you came back,
I came back, I'd missed like 7-8 questions. Then, so I was like, okay, I'll just take it again. So I took it again. I can't even remember. The week I was about to take it, I think my husband was like, can you cancel it? Because I'd had a really bad week at work. In fact, the results came out the day we had booked a trip to Dubai. We're going on holiday. That's when the results came out. So we went to get it. When we got to the British Council, I told my husband, I can't go inside. You go in. So he brought it out. He opened it. He said, it's okay. The eye started crying.
Oh.
Throughout on the way to the airport. It was supposed to be a joyous, vacation on the way to the airport, in the plane. I was like, what is this? Then we had a terrible experience in the airport in Nigeria. And when I got on the plane, I'm like, this is why we have to leave this country. Terrible experience. I couldn't carry my daughter's food. They didn't let me. It was a Nigerian aircraft, just... So we got on the holiday. I tried, we tried to... It was like the IELTS was not happening. So we now started looking into schools.
Okay.
When we even started looking into schools, I was like, but we can't even afford this.
Because now the fees, and then
you have a child. But you were just trying
to get,
we're like, let's check for schools with scholarship. But nobody wanted to school. That was not the... So we came back to Nigeria and I said, I'm going to take it again. My husband was shocked. I'm a very tenacious person. So I took this one, I gave it my all. I took a week. The week before the exam, I took the whole week off work. I was like, nobody should call me. So I wrote this time. I came out feeling very confident. A bit scared, but I knew that. So the results came out. I cleared everything. Then, you fill everything up. You're now waiting for invitation to apply. So our scores were good. This was towards the end of the year.
Okay.
But we said, so I think we had filled it in like December 12th or 13th. And just before then, there was a draw. So we said, okay, we're just going to wait till next year. And then December 19th, there was a draw. So now you're excited. You have to start filling all the paperwork.
Forms, yeah.
And then now the money.
I know, right? I think that's also like a big hurdle for a lot of people because we talk about relocation. They have all the qualifications and everything, but now you really need that money to move. Proof of funds, the application fees, and all that.
So, but the thing is, thank God we had been saving. We had started saving, so we had we're a one-car family. It wasn't convenient, but we had a goal. We had a goal, so we were very, very cautious with things we did. And so we submitted everything, and then now the wait starts. So my husband said I became a professional IRCC caller. Because I think from May, June, I started calling them almost every Friday.
Okay.
Weekends, I'll be so sad because I can't call them. I hated Canadian public holidays because
But did you get any positive response on many of the calls? Like, they'll track it for you and all that.
They'll tell it was the same thing is in progress, the same thing you were seeing online. But when you're so, I don't know, anxious, that's why the Bible said be anxious for nothing. When you're so anxious, and it was like, why? After my husband said, stop. One Friday in August, I'd finished calling them. The lady was like, can you please just be, but she was so sweet. Said, please just be patient. I said, okay. Then my husband would come and say, what did they say? I said, please patient. But she was really nice though. Okay. So we slept, and around 2 a.m. to tell you how I woke up to check, like
your mind was still on it even in your sleep.
I used to do that all the time. I woke up to check and it was there. August 5th. Some dates you can
never.
August 5th. And she was a baby then. She was sleeping in the middle of us. So I had to stretch, stab my husband. I said, it's here. He said, what is it? So he went to the bathroom to wash his face. I said, what did you? I said, it's here. He just broke down, giving thanks. And it was like that journey. we could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah.
How was it like for you getting on the plane, coming, the emotions that you went through, knowing that all the work, and all the emotions you had gone through, the anxiety was now paying off?
The day of travel was the most stressful day for both. I wish my husband was here to collaborate. It was the most stressful day for the both of us. I don't know if they have this thing in Ghana, but in Nigeria, we make jokes that village people exist.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, village people exist.
Or your house people.
Okay, because we didn't tell a lot of people. This was one that we were very cautious about because you hear stories. And so this was one. So obviously important people knew, my mom, his siblings, but we kept it really close. Some people back home are still angry with us that we it's okay.
Packed and left. So you would have to, unintentionally offend people to protect your goals and your dreams. And my husband always says something that don't invite unnecessary battles.
Yes.
I mean, you don't mean to hurt people, but you need to protect yourself.
Of course. And even the Bible tells us to be wise. Like sometimes I think we talk too much. So that day was extremely stressful. You know how you've planned something for a very long time, but everything that could go wrong went wrong that day. So we're leaving the house that day. My husband wanted to go change money. There was serious rain that day. It rained all day. Abuja crazy. There was no power. So by the time it was there was no power all day. 6 p.m. my phone was half dead. We had sold everything, by the way, the generator, everything. And my brother calls and says the traffic where he was in Gwarin Park to pick us, he's like, it's not even moving. Okay, so this was about close to 8 p.m. Call the first Uber person. We had already paid. That person's phone is turned off. Niger. Call the second one. He said, Oga, I am stuck in traffic where I am. He said, I leave house since, but
it's not moving.
It's not moving. So I started panicking. I was speaking in tongues, but I was panicking.
So I'm praying out of fear.
I was panicking. So my husband calls his brother.
Okay.
His older brother. We try and get another. We're like, listen, we'll pay you anything. So his brother comes, the other guy comes. We're in two different. So I'm in the car with his brother.
Okay.
And Zoe, a few suitcases. My husband is with me. And so we're moving. There's no light. There's no power.
You can't even see where you're going.
You can't see where you're going. And I think my brother-in-law took the wrong turn. So you're either going to airport or you're going to Zuba. Abuja people will understand. It was nobody's fault because you couldn't. It was raining cats and dogs. And I remember sitting at the back with my daughter thinking, my goodness, this is what people say. And I'm thinking, but we didn't even tell plenty people. We get to the airport past 10, drenched. All I was thinking on the way was, how much is it to get another flight the next day? Because it was one flight a day. Honestly, God had mercy because that flight was delayed. We didn't leave till about 2 a.m. They were having issues.
Prayer works.
But till we got on the plane, until the plane taxied and left, my husband and I still felt something is going to happen. So it was when we got on the air, he looked at me. He said, baby, I'm tired. Now I can't sleep.
Like you fought.
Yes.
You fought.
Exhausted. Yes.
It's bringing back old memories.
It's bringing back old memories, yes.
Bringing back old memories.
Yes.
We thank God, for the journey and everything. I think every time we have conversations, people get emotional because, I mean, you don't understand. It's a life-changing moment, right? And you put in a lot.
Yep.
And, you're like at the brink of it,
yes.
And there are so many things that people go through and people don't understand when people are emotional and they're joyous, about moving and all that. But everybody has that moment where, it's like at the brink of it and there's always that battle that you go through. Now you arrive in Canada. right? How was life different here compared to your experiences in the UK or in Nigeria? What mindset shifts did you have to go through in order, to get to where you are now?
Difference between Canada and the UK for me was when I started in the UK, my parents were paying all the bills. Now I'm an adult paying the bills. You have a child that do you understand, you're also responsible
Depending
for.
on you.
Yes. So immediately we got here, I knew that my husband is a very, he can be really positive. He's like, listen, God that has brought us here is not going to abandon us. So we had that. We had our faith. We had that. We also knew it was going to be a different life. But I think there was fear, there was excitement, but there was like, Lord, whatever you bring our way. I think that's why people hold on to their faith. Because I kid you not, we did not know what to expect. But it's just like, Heavenly Father, you're in control. And what God did was send friends, like people that are now friends, that you can even consider family. When you first move, you need, except you are self-sufficient, you need like the village, to help with advice, daycare, how do we register? It's very different here.
What were your greatest cultural shocks? Both, community-wise, the work environment. What really shocked you? What things did you need to adapt quickly to?
So for me, not a lot, because there was some culture shock, but not a lot because I had experienced it in the UK. So being the only Black person in a place was not new for me. It was very new for my husband and my daughter.
Okay.
So I remember one time, the first daycare she was in, my husband came back and was like, she's the only Black girl. I'm like, she'll survive. Because in my mind, I was thinking,
I experienced that in the UK. So.
Yeah, but I was a teenager, so I could, I've always had tough skin. I could handle it. I didn't understand that for a 3 or 4 year old, so that culture shock, I also had to, I'm like, okay, so.
Did you have any incidences, that, like for her, that you needed to, maybe guide her through?
Yeah, so one day she came back, she was about 3 or 4. She came back from daycare and she said, Mommy, why do I have kinky hair? I was like, kinky hair? I was like, this is not what a 3-year-old says. She said people in her class were saying she has kinky hair. And because of that, they wouldn't invite her there was going to be a sleepover. So that's when we knew that this environment was not safe. Now, kids will always be kids. That's the truth. But because of that incident, anything that has to do with our daughter now, we go the extra mile to make sure. So, in fact, what happened after that is that we started looking for schools that had a lot of representation. So I would when I call a school, I'm like, so how many people are going to be in grade 1? They'll say maybe 20. How many Black kids do you have? They'll be surprised or shocked. Sometimes I do it face to face. I'm like, I have to protect my child. I remember the first day she came back, her first day in grade primary, so she was 5 years old, she came back, she was so excited. Said, Mommy, there were 3 Black kids, 2 brown kids, and tears, I didn't know it was that important.
To her.
I did not know it, because I was like,
You survived.
You survived.
So you survived.
Yes, I didn't know it was that important. And since then, that has been one of those things for me that it's really, really important. And some people say it's extra. So even when we're moving to Edmonton, the school she's in now, I emailed the principal. I said, please, can we have a meeting? We had a virtual call. I said, she was going to grade 3. So how many Black kids do you have? He said, even the teacher said she's Nigerian. I said, oh, good.
Fantastic.
So what's your take on racism? I said, good.
Yes. I love that. I think a lot of times when we move, we forget that the children are also adapting.
Yep.
That we need to be present for them.
Yep.
We need to, if they are old enough to understand, to coach them, to have these kind of conversations. Yep. And honestly, you're the first person I've spoken with who has gone this far, and I really admire that, because even as adults, sometimes we are uncomfortable or scared to bring up those conversations, right? And I mean, that's brilliant, because you are putting your child first. It's not
Yeah.
just about, moving to Canada, getting Canadian education, but you're also making sure your child is safe, she's
safe,
comfortable, you are trying to avoid conflict will come, but you're trying to avoid it as much as
yes.
possible. And, listening to your child, listening to her feelings. Because like you rightfully said, somebody could just brush it off, you'll be okay, but actually taking steps to make sure and after all, for you, one of the key things was moving because of her.
Mm-hmm.
So if you move because of her and now you come here and she's uncomfortable, then what's the point?
We've defeated the purpose. And for me, that I give credit to my husband, because sometimes, I remember one time we went to a playground and I didn't even realize she was the only black kid. This was in Nova Scotia. And I was like, go and play now, go and play. And she was, she was much younger then. And so my husband was like, she's uncomfortable. Like, why is she uncomfortable? The other kids are... so it's sometimes as a parent, now I'm very, very conscious of it.
Do you think it's made you too sensitive?
I don't think you can ever be too sensitive because of the world we live in, and Canada is changing. And if we are not sensitive, our children might get burnt. So call me a sensitive parent, but a lot is going on in the world. So you also we can't shield our kids all the time because she's going to go out into the world. Do you understand? Yeah. But what we can do, we do. We also, that was also for us a learning opportunity. Because when she came home, my husband sat down, her dad, they had a good chat. Sometimes for us, immigrant parents, growing up in Nigeria, going to secondary school, primary school, everybody was black. Everybody had the hair we did. Everybody did thread. And so sometimes you can forget that. But these children that we're bringing up here, I don't think there's ever too sensitive.
Yeah, totally. What are some of the biggest sacrifices you think you've had to make moving to Canada to be able to achieve your goals of wanting the kind of life that you want for your child?
Family, you leave family. I miss my family. In Abuja, my mom was there. My mom's sisters were there. My cousins were there. So almost every Saturday, my cousins would come over, we'll go to their house and we'll just talk and gist from like 12 to like 8, 9, 10 p.m. Now we went to the same church, so we would have seen each other the next day. But it's like at 10 p.m, my auntie is dragging my younger cousins. It's time to go, it's time. But the gist, NEPA will take light, the power will go. They'll go and buy pizza. Will just be talking, and that whole, you really, really miss that.
The sense of community.
Yeah, sense of community. That's one of the things I miss. My cousins, I miss my aunt, I miss seeing my mom, and I know my husband will say the same thing. So sometimes it's like my husband makes an effort to make sure that our daughter speaks to her cousins back home, so she knows that there's family. There's family, because that's one of the things. If you don't have family here, it can be a bit lonely.
Yeah.
And and the cousins are kind of her age, and sometimes I think to myself, if we're all in the same, somebody would just be doing school runs. They'll all be the same. That's how I grew up. With my cousins, one parent to do the pickup, it was fun. I really, really miss that. I think another thing, but I don't want to, I'm going to say this lightly because for us Christians, promotion does not come from the northeast, from the west, it comes from God. But I see colleagues that I started with, because when you come here, you know how you start. So by the time I was leaving Nigeria, I was a comms advisor with an NGO. And one of my really good colleagues were on the same level. She's now a director. Now, I'm really happy for her. Everybody's life and trajectory is different. But sometimes I'm like, if I had stayed in Nigeria, because you come here, and especially with jobs like communications, you have to prove. Communications is something people are listening to your English, your writing. You have to kind of like really, and it's one of those professions that not a lot of us are into. Now we're getting into, predominantly it's been a white, career. So I remember when we first came, I would go for communications jobs. And it's like, oh, you speak well. It's like they don't trust. But we have a communications assistant role available or an admin role, So it took a while to climb the ladder, which I'm sure a lot of immigrants will say that too. It took. So I'm thinking that 3 or 4 years where I was climbing the ladder to get to, would I have direct audits? So
totally get you. Was it difficult translating your experiences from Nigeria into the Canadian context? Getting your first job, all those things.
Of course,
so
it was.
How did you go about that?
You just have to. My first interview here, I botched it. I messed up because it was behavioral-based interviews, which I don't think I'd ever done before. And so I came out of that interview. I'm like, oh, I just modeled my way. Do you understand? But then you start learning. I don't know if you've heard students say, like, my cousin was telling me how in Nigeria, in school, it's very, very technical. It's
like a lot of rote learning.
Yes. And then you come here and they want you to think for yourself. So the questions that were being asked, I thought they were going to ask me, like technical questions, but it's like, how do you apply reasoning and strategy? So after the first interview, I was like, okay, I need to, because it's different. It's really different here. So thank God for the internet. You do a lot of researches. I love doing research. And then friends as well. My friend Ife, who had come about 2 or 3 years before us, I would reach out to her. She has a law background. And like, babes, I'm going for this interview. We'll sit down together. There's a lot of resources online as well. Teach yourself. Sometimes it was how we even phrased CV, resume. That's such a big deal. Yeah. Such a big deal.
People have like 4 pages,
putting on
the life story,
unnecessary stuff, and then using the one resume and one cover for
all the jobs you're applying to.
Yes. So, but my husband is also a firm believer of life is in stages, step by step. So my first role here was with the bank, customer service. But I believe that was a good starting point because I would go to the office and see how people were relating, which is very different from Nigeria. Very, very, Nigeria, you just sit down, you talk about everything, politics, government, church. So learning those soft skills that you knew in the UK, but then you kind of like dropped because, so relearning. And so by the time you go for your next interview after the customer service one, you're using the examples from that. And they're like, okay, this one has some Canadian.
The cultural experience.
Yes.
You understand that. I hope you're enjoying the conversation so far. Please leave a comment, a question, any thoughts you have. If you're in Canada or if you're arriving soon, we've put together a team that's going to help you work through your CV, tailor it to the Canadian system, and help you to learn how to network on the right platforms. The final icing on the cake is to help you to ace the interview when you finally land one. If this is a coaching program that you would like to go through with us, I'll leave the link on the screen. It will also be in the pinned comments. Please book a call with us. So let's get right back into the conversation. With all this, what do you think are some of the skills that new immigrants coming in need to develop?
A lot of soft skills. I think some of the things that really, a lot of soft skills are needed. I'm going to speak as a Nigerian now. We're not taught those kind of things. I remember being in Nigeria, you could say anything in the office. Somebody would just come in and say, you're looking fast today. What's happening? We just talk like that. We just talk like that. And sometimes you bring it here. I went for an event the other day and somebody, my name is Habiba, it's Arabic. So a lot of Nigerians, when they call me, they say, you're Muslim. They just automatically, but the way they'll just say it. So I went and I was talking to another friend. I saw in church, and the person said, Habiba, what are you doing in church? What are you doing in church? Are you not Muslim? I started, and I was like, my goodness, why? And sometimes translates to, I read somewhere, I don't know if this is true or if this is, the person said, the article or whatever says something like, this lady was in the UK and then she took sick leave, and then her boss calls her and I said, oh, I heard you took a sick leave. Are you sick? She said no, she's well. You know that positive thing that let the weak say,
how are you? We always say, oh, I'm doing well.
So are you sick? She said no, she's well. The boss said, but you're sick. She said no, but she was sick. But
she was making positive.
And she got in trouble because you took sick leave for being sick.
But I called you and you said you're not sick.
Really, really important. It's really, really important. Soft skills. I think, and if you don't know, ask questions. Ask questions. Thank God that there's a lot of networking online. You can reach out to somebody in LinkedIn or somebody you see online. People reach out to me, oh, Biba, I'm going for a comms interview. Those things are good, so you know what to say, what not to say. I heard a story of a lady who had this job in Nigeria. It was a police role. I think she was in the police force, whatever they call it. And then she came to Canada for an interview for that same position. And they asked her, how are you going to handle this situation if, certain... And she gave the example of how she handled it in Nigeria. But how she handles it in Nigeria was not the right way.
I think a lot of times when they talk about Canadian experience, really what they are saying is, do you understand our culture and our way of doing things?
Yes.
Technically, it's on paper, you can do the job.
Yes.
But I want to know that you can immerse.
In fact, you've just summed it up. Canadians and Canadian workplaces love that you do things the Canadian way. Simple. They just love that you do things the Canadian way. My cousin shared this, older cousins are doctors in Nova Scotia. So they shared this story, how they had first moved from Nigeria to the UK. And there was this brilliant doctor. You know how, I don't need to do it in Ghana, but in Nigeria, the baby comes out, is not crying, and it's the baby. And I'm sure they did it for us. We survived.
Yeah.
So he was doing his residency or something. The baby comes out. The baby is not making any noise. And he hits the baby.
The baby's born.
And the baby starts. And the parents sue. The baby started crying, which is what you want. But he got sued. Yeah. And I think they said his license was suspended for a bit. Yes.
Wow. Wow. So I think as part of all the preparations, when you're coming, you need to research into cultural, appropriateness in Canada. How to, I've had people say, oh, maybe I said something to someone, they got offended and I didn't know I was, that's how, so you need to really take your time and learn the culture.
Yep.
Even before you give somebody a hug, some people, you need to maybe ask, is it appropriate? Can I give you a hug? Can I touch you?
Yes. I know in fact, this is a really big one because back home, we don't have that sense of, is this space now? The words,
respect
they
would say that you're doing too much. Yes. Like, why do you have to ask you,
respect each other's
boundaries.
Yes, that's the word. Yeah, you really do. Some people don't want you to hug them, or how back home you just touch.
Yes.
People don't like that. People do not like that, and you have to respect that. You have to. Yes.
Do you think that living in 3 different places has made you who you are today, has impacted your life as opposed to if you had lived in just one place?
Definitely, because I think what that did was, and I didn't just live in those places for like a month or 2, you were there for, what that does is it opens your mind up to different culture. For me, one of the things it's done, and I thank God for that, is that when we first came and I go for an interview, sometimes they don't even look at the Nigeria experience. Even though I was working with a USAID-funded NGO, I worked with Deloitte in Abuja, they just go straight to, oh, tell me about your time in the UK. You know how it is. And they skip all that 3-4 years experience of, so I thank God that interviews I went for, yes, they went back. And in fact, there was one time I went for an interview and the person said, oh, you were in Scotland. And he had a thick Scottish accent. He's like, oh yeah, he's da, 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 da. And we just started talking for about 10 minutes. Tell me more. Maybe they thought I was lying about, so obviously we started having a conversation. I did get the role. I don't know if it was because of that. But what it has done for me, it has made me appreciate some things. It makes me appreciate Canada more. Like I said, I was in the UK, Nigeria. It made me appreciate Canada is not perfect. But there's some really good positives here. It's shaped my mind in the sense that travel is good. It broadens your horizon. I saw culture differently there. People say, oh, white is white. No. So the British people are very different. Even though some of them came from, very different from Canadians. And so sometimes when I want to respond to something at work, I remember when I was in Nova Scotia, because you need to visit Atlantic Canada. They're the nicest people. The way I send an email in Nova Scotia is very different from the way I send an email here. Because they're very different people. So I think that has shaped
you. What has been some of your high moments? I know we've spoken about the culture shocks and all that, but what has been some of your very high moments in Canada that made you feel like, okay, now Canada is, becoming home for me, or, making you feel like, yes, I made the right decision?
I think I mentioned this in the beginning. Since we came, Canada has really changed. And when we first came, daycares, offices, you could count the Black people. You could count the colored people. But now you enter a place, like I go to my daughter's school to pick her up, and I look around and I'm like, yes, this is multicultural. I'm happy. Some people will say, why are you happy? But I am. I take her to, last week was March break camp. I took her to camp, and I went there. I saw the teachers, two of the teachers, they looked like one was from the Middle East, the other was Southeast Asian, and and so in the car with my daughter, I was like, where is this teacher from? She said, oh, I think she said she's from Vietnam, but then the other one is from the Philippines, and I was like, this is interesting, because she's also learning. I said, can you tell the difference between the two? She said, and then, so for me, that is a high, because when we first moved to Nova Scotia, you would enter a Walmart, and everybody was white. But again, Nova Scotia is really small.
Yeah.
Another high moment for me was, I think it was our first or second week here in Edmonton. I went to the mall, and somebody started shouting, Biba's Canadian Jenny, Biba. And I turned, I was like, I didn't know they knew me here. I felt like a tiny mini celebrity.
Like a high moment. I think even for me, sometimes you don't even realize, that you're just sharing, but you don't realize the impact it has on people. And so when somebody sees you and says, I know you, you're like, okay, that's amazing. So what advice would you give to any newcomer coming to Canada, for the first time, on their PR journey, they're now coming in?
Come with a very open mind. Come with a plan, but come with a very open mind. Have a plan. I'm a planner. Have a plan. Sometimes your plans will be derailed. Not sometimes. God is always in control. So you might have something, God is just looking at you thinking, but still have a plan. Because what it does is that it helps you map out. When you come to Canada, there are loads of opportunities. When we came, I always knew, I love communications. I've always been in communications. But when we came, the job in communications was not coming. So I think after the first year, I was like, okay, I'm going to go and do HR. Everybody seems to be doing, because the only other thing was like nursing, I can't, or IT, I can't. So I'm like, I'm going to go and do HR. Everybody seems to, and then my husband was like, this is not the plan. This is not what we said. HR, you love your writing, go back to the drawing board. And so I actually applied to study HR. And I remember I called the school and they're giving me a hard time. Said I had to do my West again. And I was like, I have a master's in corporate communications. Why I'm coming to do a diploma in HR? Then the person over the phone said, yes, why are you doing a diploma in HR? You have a master's in corporate. Why are you? He said, this is a step down. I said, oh yeah. I had applied everything. I said, oh yeah. I needed that. I didn't know the person over the phone because the person said, why are you? And I was like, Habiba, that was not the plan. I see a lot of people get derailed. Because when we first came, everybody was like, nursing, Nova Scotia was nursing, HR or IT. Have a plan. Yes, sometimes you need to pivot, but stay on course. It took me, by God's grace, 2.5 years before I got my first comms role. I did a lot of office admin, roles. And I'll be doing it thinking, I was a comms advisor in Deloitte. What am I doing here? But you need humility too in Canada. Canada will humble you. But there was a plan and we got on the throne. I think for me, God orchestrates. Sometimes you go through, and I can look back on it and say, really, those were like learning curves. Yes. So come with a plan, but also come with an open mind because things could change really fast. My really good friend in Nova Scotia, her background is law. And so when she came, she was like, what's she going to do? She. And the way her own life just pivoted, you could see that God orchestrated that her too. So she's doing policy now, not quite law, but she had to pivot because, yeah.
I mean, there are times that you need to find things that are relevant to what you already did, that are relevant in this context, and then, pivot. And of course, having that plan, I keep telling everybody, you need to come with a plan. You can't just come and wing it. Having your PR, having your PR is not the end of the journey. It's actually the beginning, right? And you need to come in here knowing that the moment you get in here, you're hitting the ground running, right? Whether it's like for you, it may be going back to school, it may be, taking a step down, maybe looking for jobs outside of Canada, whatever it is, come with a plan. Don't just, again, I'm going to say it, don't just wing it.
No, and the people doing well, the immigrants are doing really, really well in Canada because the truth is the system works. But you, like you said, you have to come with a plan. You have to be focused. I was talking to a realtor and he's Indian and he was telling us how majority of the people coming and buying houses now, because housing in Canada is not expensive. He said they're immigrants. He said, Habiba, all my clients are immigrants. They're doing well, but they come with a plan. I know a family that came, they had their goal. They came via PMP to a small province. They stayed there, did the 3 years they were supposed to. You know what I mean? They didn't, when they came, in fact, sometimes we'll be like, let's go, for a short vacation. They're like, no, the plan. They didn't share the plan because it was their family thing, but they had a goal.
It makes all the difference.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference.
Yep.
So, UK or Canada?
Oh, dear Lord. Canada. I know over 20 people in the UK that buzz me almost every week for their Canadian journey. I don't know if the UK has changed this year. I mean, we can be bad enough. But one of the things I don't like about it, or one of the things that is peculiar to the UK, one of the things that's peculiar to Canada is the permanent residency and getting your citizenship in 3 years. I don't think there's any other country, maybe Australia, I don't know, that offers that. And so for me, you do IELTS, you do WES, you spend all that. People don't know how much it costs us to come here. You spend all that, you come, you're working hard, you're paying taxes. And then after 5-6 years, you're still renewing work. No, now, God forbid. No. No. You hardly, yes, you see a few people move from here to the UK, but it's usually...
Or the US.
Or the
I think
US.
we see that more, Canada to US.
Canada to US. Canada to US, I really don't blame people because maybe there are more opportunities. The pay is better.
So I hear.
Pay is much, much better. And if you get a good organization that'll give you healthcare, why not? Because that's one of the things the US needs to sort out. But the UK, just no.
Canada any day.
Canada any day. I mean, you do the right thing, follow the process. It's not a walk in the park, but you can beat your chest that you would get your passport. You can travel anywhere you want to. You're a Canadian citizen. I'm not sure.
Was there any time that you regretted the decision, the earlier days?
Coming to Canada?
Yeah.
Never. I have never, even when the earlier days, because the earlier days are challenging, are really, really challenging. Our first winter here, we came in September, I think. Our first winter here, my daughter got pneumonia. My God, it scared the living daylight out of us. But there was still no regret because I still remember she got ill in Nigeria and the way she was treated. So was it tough? Yes. Going to work on the bus in winter is really, really tough, but no regrets. And anytime I try to feel sad, you just remember where God is bringing you from. You remember where all the praying and the fasting you did. And like, God, you're on the throne now.
So what's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote. Hey, you didn't prepare me for this one, though.
I've caught you off guard.
Everybody thinks I'm smart, so I have to. Oh my goodness, my favorite quote.
Or anything, any quote that speaks to you.
One of the quotes that really, really speaks to me is when somebody throws an opportunity at you, right? Even if you don't, I'm paraphrasing now because I can't remember the exact, but it's one of my mantras. Somebody throws an opportunity at you, even if you don't know, it's like know what to do or how to do it, say yes, and then go do your research. So when you sent me that message last week or 2 weeks ago, I was like, what did you want to talk about? I usually don't want interviewing people. People don't interview me. But I said, she seems nice and this will also be good for both of us. It's okay. So it's like I took the opportunity first. I didn't, because I was like, my God, I'm usually the one interviewing people. I don't like people interviewing me. But yeah. Yes.
So on that note, thank you for doing this with me. Can I give you a hug? The Canadian.
Yes.